The Vietnam War was full of brutal battles, hidden traps, and impossible odds. But among all the horrors of that war, one location stands above the rest. A place where 6,000 American troops walked into a nightmare, surrounded by more than 30,000 North Vietnamese soldiers. A hidden fortress, a jungle death zone, a battlefield so eerie. Soldiers sighed the trees had eyes. This is the story of one of the creepiest death traps of the entire Vietnam War. Khe Sanh. In the northwest corner of South Vietnam, near the border with Laos, lay a full-covered plateau known as Khe Sanh Combat Base. From the air, it looked almost peaceful, a remote outpost carved out of the wilderness. But on the ground, it was a living nightmare. The base was completely isolated, surrounded by a suffocating wall of dense jungle, steep, jagged mountains, and a network of hidden trails used by the enemy for decades. To make matters worse, a constant, heavy fog blanketed the area, reducing visibility to almost zero for days on end. This environment was a paradise for ambushes, and a prison for those inside. Escape was nearly impossible, but Khe Sanh wasn't just a random piece of land. It held immense strategic importance. It sat directly adjacent to the Ho Chi Minh Trail, the vital supply artery that funneled troops, weapons, and equipment from North Vietnam down into the south. For the Americans, holding Khe Sanh meant they could disrupt this critical enemy lifeline. But for the North Vietnamese army, the NVA, the base was a dagger aimed at their heart, and they had one single, ruthless mission: erase Khe Sanh from the map. In early 1968, American intelligence began to pick up on something terrifying. Reports trickled in about massive enemy troop movements. Thousands of NVA soldiers were moving silently through the jungle, like ghosts in the mist, all converging on one single point: Khe Sanh. At first, many commanders were skeptical. It seemed impossible. How could 30,000 enemy troops, a force 5 times larger than the American garrison, maneuver through that dense, unforgiving jungle without being detected? But the 6,000 US Marines stationed at Khe Sanh would soon discover the chilling truth. The signs started small and were easy to dismiss. One morning, a patrol reported seeing shadows moving in the thick fog, just at the edge of their vision. Then, they found fresh footprints in the mud where no one should have been. At night, strange noises began to echo through the valley, the distant clang of metal, the faint sound of digging, whispers carried on the wind. The NVA was here. They were surrounding them. Day by day, they crept closer, digging an elaborate web of trenches, setting up heavy artillery positions in the hills, and tightening the noose around the American base. The death trap was being set. On January 21st, 1968, hell opened its gates. The NVA unleashed a massive, coordinated artillery barrage on Khe Sanh. Thousands upon thousands of shells, rockets, and mortar rained down on the base. For 77 straight days, the bombardment was relentless. The ground shook so violently that it felt like a constant earthquake. Bunkers collapsed, burying men alive. The main ammunition dump was hit, triggering a cataclysmic explosion that sent a mushroom cloud into the sky and rained shrapnel across the entire base. Supplies burned, trenches were obliterated, and soldiers scrambled for any cover they could find. One Marine later recalled, there was no safe spot. Not in a bunker, not in a trench. The ground itself felt like it was trying to kill you. The artillery fire destroyed the base's airstrip, cutting off the primary means of reinforcement and evacuation. The only way to get food, water, and ammunition to the besieged Marines was through dangerous, high-risk airdrops. Supply planes had to fly low and slow through a gauntlet of anti-aircraft fire. Many were riddled with bullets. Some were hit by missiles and exploded in midair, their precious cargo and crews lost in a fireball. The Marines were trapped, cut off from the outside world, and they knew it. Inside the death trap of Khe Sanh, life became surreal. The world shrank to the size of a muddy trench and a dark, damp bunker. Marines lived and slept underground, in cramped holes filled with rats, insects, and the constant smell of damp earth and fear. They existed under a crushing weight of perpetual anxiety, a kind that never goes away. You never knew when the next shell would hit, or if the bunker you were in would be your tomb. Every morning began with the scream of incoming artillery. Every night was filled with the unsettling whispers and shadows in the fog. NVA snipers hid in the dense tree line, picking off anyone who dared to move in the open. The enemy's trenches crept closer and closer each day, sometimes just a few hundred feet from the American perimeter. Some soldiers swore they could hear the enemy digging tunnels directly beneath their feet, an unnerving scratching sound coming from deep within the earth. Food ran low. Clean water became a luxury, but morale ran the lowest of all. One soldier later described the feeling. We were ghosts, alive, but just waiting to die. Perhaps the creepiest and most psychologically taxing part of the entire siege was the enemy's vast, hidden tunnel system. The NVA were masters of subterranean warfare. They had dug miles of complex underground passages that snaked through the earth, leading right up to the perimeter of the American base. Patrols would report hearing footsteps coming from below the ground, even muffled voices, but they could never find the tunnel entrances. It felt like the enemy was everywhere at once, in front of you, behind you, and even right under your feet. This invisible threat was terrifying. Marines felt haunted, as if they were fighting a phantom army. They started calling Khe Sanh the Valley of Invisible Soldiers. The enemy could pop up, launch an attack, and then vanish back into the ground without a trace. Despite being outnumbered 5-1, surrounded, and under constant bombardment, the Marines at Khe Sanh refused to surrender. Their defiance was legendary. In response to the siege, the U.S. launched Operation Niagara, one of the most intense and concentrated aerial bombing campaigns in the history of warfare. 4 weeks, B-52 bombers flew sortie after sortie, dropping over 100,000 tons of bombs on the NVA positions surrounding the base. The jungle burned, the mountains shook. Entire hillsides were literally erased from the landscape by the sheer force of the explosions. The NVA, which had anticipated a swift victory, was now facing the full, terrifying might of American air power. Finally, by April of 1968, battered and unable to break the American defenses, the NVA began to withdraw. The 77-day siege was over. Khe Sanh had survived. The victory, however, came at a staggering cost. The base itself was left in ruins, a cratered, smoldering landscape. Hundreds of U.S. Marines were killed, and thousands more were wounded. The psychological scars for the survivors would last a lifetime. And then came the strangest twist of all. Just a few months after this brutal, hard-won victory, the United States decided to dismantle and abandon Khe Sanh completely. The base they had fought so desperately to hold was simply given up. For the soldiers who had endured hell there, this was a bitter pill to swallow. Many wondered, why? Why did we fight so hard? Why did so many of my friends die, just for us to leave it all behind? Even today, the strategic debate continues. Was Khe Sanh a victory that broke the back of the NVA? Or was it a diversion? A trap that the US military walked right into? One thing is certain. The Battle of Khe Sanh remains one of the most terrifying and haunting episodes in the history of the Vietnam War. It was a place where 6,000 men stood against 30,000 in the heart of a jungle death zone and survived one of the creepiest death traps ever created. Thank you for watching. If you found this story interesting, make sure to like and subscribe, and let me know in the comments what piece of military history you'd like me to cover next. See you in the next one.